It is Monday, January 23rd. Welcome everybody to the Planning and Development Committee meeting. As we begin today's meeting, we'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the treaty territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. Good evening, everyone. We will begin tonight's meeting with the roll call. Deputy Mayor Singh. Present. Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vincente.
Present.
Councillor Brar.
Present.
Councillor Keenan.
Present.
Councillor Medeiros.
Here.
Councillor Fortini.
I'm here.
Councillor Tour.
Present.
Councillor Power. Mayor Brown, just in case. We're now at the approval of the agenda stage. Do any members have anything to add, remove, delete, anything with respect to the approval of the agenda? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a few items to note. The City Clerk's Office received correspondence from Build, and this is in regards to item 7.4 on today's agenda. This new correspondence will be identified as 11.4 on tonight's agenda regarding the 2023 fee changes for development and site plan applications. And the correspondence is from Victoria Mortaletti from Build, dated January 23rd. It's requesting deferral of the report for the fees so that the fees don't come into effect as of February 1st. Secondly, in regards to 11.2 on tonight's agenda, correspondence regarding item 7.5. There was additional correspondence from Andrew Orr, who is the president trustee of the Springbrook Community Management, and this is a correspondence dated January 20th in regards to item 7.5 on tonight's agenda, and the clerk's office will send these two pieces of correspondence out to members of committee shortly, and they'll be posted online after the meeting.
So sorry, Peter, that correspondence for 7.5 is 11.
It's 11.2 part 2
11.2,
because 11.2 part 1 is correspondence related to the same item from Frank Marchio.
Right, got it. Excellent. Deputy Mayor, you move a motion to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor? That carries. Are there any declarations of interest under Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Any members want to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing none. The consent motion. Our next item is the consent motion. As per our process agreed by council, the consent motion will be subject to a recorded vote. I will go directly to the staff presentations and planning reports. 7.1 staff report, application to amend the official planning zoning bylaw, M-Plan Inc., Ivory Group 227 and 229 Main Street, Ward 3. I'm asking if you'd like it held. Yeah. Held by Councillor Keenan. 7.2 staff report, continuous improvements, update, audit and accountability, funded projects, planning, build, and growth management. Seeing none. 7.3 staff report, the impacts of Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act 2022 on Brampton planning, build, and growth management. 7.4 staff report, 2023 fee changes for development and site plan applications, planning, build, and growth management. Staff report, application to amend the zoning bylaw and for the proposed draft plan of subdivision Glen Snarr and Associates Inc. 13172589 Canada Inc. 9224 and 9230 Credit View Road, Ward 5. 8.1 Brampton Heritage Board minutes. And I'll leave the correspondence. 11.2 I can put into consent. 11.2 correspondence, application to amend the zoning bylaw and for the proposed draft plan of subdivision Glen Snarr and Associates, Frank Marchio, and added Andrew Orr. 11.3 correspondence to impacts of Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act 2022 2, Brampton Plan, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And Peter, the 11.4?
Through you, Mr. Chair, 11.4 is the correspondence from Build regarding report 7.4, which is currently a candidate for consent approval. So if you wish to consider that additional correspondence on consent, that's fine.
Happy to put that into consent as well. Peter, if you'd like to summarize the consent motion and agenda and call for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, members of committee, the following items will be considered as part of the consent motion. Item 7.2, the staff report on continuous improvements update, audit and accountability funded projects. 7.3, a staff report on the impacts of Bill 23. 7.4, a staff report on 2023 fee changes for development and site plan applications. 7.5, a staff report regarding an application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision, Glenn Schnarr and Associates in Ward 5. 8.1, minutes from the Brampton Heritage Board meeting of December 13th, and under correspondence 11.2 through to 11.4, which are correspondence related to items 7.5, 7.3, and 7.4, also on the consent. So all members in favor of the consent motion, please stand to be counted. Showing as in favor in the chambers is Councillor Brar, Councillor Keenan, Chair Paleshi, Councillor Power, and Deputy Mayor Singh. Members online, Councillor Tor, how do you vote?
Vote in favor, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Fortini?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Medeiros?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Vicente?
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Santos?
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously, 10-0.
Thank you, Peter. Our first item then on the statutory public meetings is a staff report, city initiated amendment to the official plan, a response to Bill 109. Our staff presentation is from Michelle Gervais, Policy Planner.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Michelle Gervais, and I'm a policy planner with the city's Planning, Building, and Growth Management Department. I am responsible for managing the 2 city-initiated official plan amendments being presented this evening. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the city-initiated official plan amendments. And I see I have the major transit station area background. That's another project I'm working on, so I apologize for that background. Next slide, please. So the proposed city-initiated official plan amendments apply citywide. Next slide, please. The Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force released a report in February of 2022 that provided a number of recommendations on how to fix housing affordability in Ontario. In April 2022, the province passed Bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act 2022. This bill made a variety of changes to land use planning in Ontario, which is primarily governed by the Planning Act, with the goal of increasing housing supply and streamlining development approvals. Next slide, please. This diagram illustrates that a number of Planning Act matters have been amended with the passing of Bill 109, such as subdivision control, community benefits charges, site plan control, and streamlining the approval process to provide refunds of application fees where no decision or approval is made during the statutory timeframe. In response to the Bill 109 legislation, Brampton is making a number of modifications to its development approval process, some of which require an amendment to the official plan. The proposed 2 official plan amendments being presented this evening focused on the 2 Planning Act changes highlighted in green on the screen, which is streamlining the approval process, refund of application fees, and amendments to site plan control. Next slide, please. The first step for Brampton in implementing the Bill 109 legislation was the adoption of an official plan amendment by Council on December 14th, 2022. The purpose of that official plan amendment was to amend official plan policies related to the city's pre-consultation application process and determining completeness for planning applications. It should be noted that this official plan amendment that was adopted by Council on December 14th has been appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The staff recommendation report that accompanied the official plan amendment in December 2022 identified 2 additional official plan amendments that were required to enhance the city's development review process and to meet the decision timelines prescribed by Bill 109. Staff received direction to hold a statutory public meeting to present these 2 amendments, and this is the purpose of the public meeting this evening. Next slide, please. This slide indicates the 2 official plan amendments being proposed. The first is the addition of an approval with conditions site plan application processing step, and the second is the removal of the minimum required time between a statutory public meeting and a recommendation report. Next slide, please. The first official plan amendment proposes an amendment to the site plan control section of Brampton's official plan. Under Bill 109, if site plan applications are not approved within 60 days, then refunds of the application fees start to be required. To assist in meeting the Bill 109 timelines for site plan applications, it is being proposed that a new approval with conditions processing step be added. This proposed new step will allow the Director of Development Services to issue an approval with conditions letter and stamped site plan drawings labeled with approved with conditions. This process step will also outline the conditions that are required to be fulfilled by the applicant within 180 days and those conditions that are required to be registered as part of a site plan agreement. It is proposed that the approval with conditions processing step will constitute approval of a site plan application in accordance with Bill 109. Next slide, please. The second proposed official plan amendment being presented tonight is to delete a public meeting notice requirement in Brampton's official plan. Currently, the official plan requires that the notice of a statutory public meeting contain a statement advising that a recommendation report will be prepared by staff and presented to Planning and Development Committee, and that Council will not adopt the proposed amendment or plan of subdivision until at least 30 days after the date of the public meeting. The Planning Act does not regulate the minimum number of days a council must wait to make a decision on an application after the statutory public meeting has been held. However, the Planning Act does regulate that the public be notified at least 20 days prior to the date of a statutory public meeting. Providing a minimum of 20 days notice prior to the public meeting, plus the current official plan requirement of 30 days between the public meeting and the adoption of an official plan or zoning bylaw amendment or approval of a plan of subdivision, may not leave staff with adequate time to process an application and for council to render a decision within the Bill 109 prescribed timelines. The proposed amendment to delete the minimum 30-day requirement for the official plan will allow staff the opportunity to forward a recommendation report and the implementing documents to council within any time frame after the public meeting has been held. Next slide, please. The next steps are that staff will contact and follow up with those members of the public who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in the proposed city-initiated official plan amendments. I will then prepare a final recommendation report and the official plan amendments and forward those to Planning Development Committee and Council for approval and adoption. If the official plan amendments are adopted by Council, they are subject to an appeal period. Next slide, please. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Michelle Gervais, and my contact information is posted on the screen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. Members of council, do you have any Are there any delegations on this item?
There are no registered delegations, and I'll look to see if there is no one in the audience or correspondence on this item.
Okay. Members of council, would you like to make any comments to the presentation? Seeing none, Councillor Keenan, you'll move receipt of that the report titled Information Report City Initiated Amendments to the Official Plan in Response to Bill 109 citywide dated December 15th, 2022 to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of January 23rd, 2023 be received, and that Planning, Building, and Growth Management staff be directed to report back to the Planning and Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and a staff recommendation. All in favor? That carries. Next item, 5.2, staff report, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, J.L. Richards and Associates, 284-9150 Ontario, Inc., 150 First Gulf Boulevard, Ward 3. And I don't have a staff. Natika? Sorry, Natika, you're not on my, but come up anyways. Welcome, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, committee members, and members of the public. My name is Natika Jagtiani, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of the public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by J.L. Richards and Associates Limited on behalf of 2849150 Ontario, Inc. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 3 and is municipally known as 150 First Gulf Boulevard. The nearest intersection is First Gulf Boulevard and Steeles Avenue East, and the property is located south of Steeles Avenue East on the west side of First Gulf Boulevard. Next slide, please. The surrounding land uses are described as follows. To the north are commercial and industrial uses. To the south is Biscayne Crescent, beyond which are industrial uses. To the east are industrial uses, and to the west is First Gulf Boulevard, beyond which is the industrial uses, which is land owned by the applicant, occupied by a distribution facility. Next slide, please. A proposal has been submitted to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to facilitate the redevelopment of the lands for a 4-story office building that will include office space, a showroom, and accessory recreational uses. The proposal also includes 33 vehicle parking spaces and 6 bicycle parking spaces. Next slide, please. This shows the rendering of the proposal. Next slide, please. The official plan designates the property as industrial. The proposal for office space falls outside of the industrial designation. An amendment to the official plan is therefore required to facilitate this development. Next slide, please. The subject lands are within the Highway 410 and Steeles Secondary Plan area and are designated as General Employment 2. The property falls outside of this use. The proposed development falls outside this use, and an amendment to the secondary plan is therefore required. The application proposes to redesignate the subject lands from General Employment 2 to Prestige Employment to permit office uses on site. Next slide, please. The properties are zoned industrial, M2. The current zoning permits structures or buildings for the proposed of general industrial use. The permitted uses include, but are not limited to, manufacturing, packaging, assembly of goods, radio, television broadcasting establishment, or an office as an accessory use. Next slide, please. The application proposes to amend the zoning bylaw from its current industrial M2 zone to industrial special section, which will include local office use, product showroom, and accessory recreational uses. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, Provincial Policy Statement, Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, Region of Peel Official Plan, City of Brampton Official Plan, and the Downtown Brampton Secondary Plan. Next slide, please. At this time, preliminary uses that will be addressed include adequacy of proposed parking of 33 spaces on site, with the remainder provided off-site at 69 First Gulf Boulevard, where the application owns a distribution facility, appropriate design for the access at Biscayne Crescent. These issues and others that will be raised will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Next slide, please. The next steps in this application are: the application was deemed complete on December 14th, 2022. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from staff, public, and technical comments, advance a final recommendation report to council for a decision. Issues raised will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. The report pending to this application will be available online. This presentation will be available online shortly as well. And my contact information is up on the screen. My name's Nitika Jagtiani again. And from the applicant, we will please reach out to Jen Godet if you have any questions or concerns. Next slide, please. Thank you so much, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Natika. We have also delegation, Jennifer Caudette, planner, J.L. Richardson Associates. Jennifer, you have 5 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Ms. Jagtiani covered most of my application, so we can go through this pretty quickly. Next slide, please. You can skip this one as well. So as Ms. Jagtiani outlined, we are west of Highway 410, south of Steeles, and we're approximately 1/3 of a hectare. Next slide. We will require an official plan and secondary official plan amendment. Office uses are permitted as accessory uses, but not primary. So that's the main focus of the OPAs. And likewise for the zoning, the industrial zone permits accessory office, but not primary. So we're looking to have a zoning bylaw amendment for that effect and for some site specifics, which include the parking reduction as well as a landscape reduction. Next slide. Here, if I can just draw your attention to the rendering, we've covered the text on this slide as well. So next slide. Again, the secondary plan amendment, so we're general employment 2, and we're just looking to redesignate to the prestige employment designation, which does permit offices as a primary use. Next slide. The major OPA, or the OPA that is above the secondary plan, would have the same effect as allowing an office use. Next slide. We've covered this one as well. Next slide. Next slide. So as well as a planning justification report, we submitted a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessment. Those reports assessed prior uses on the site to evaluate if there was any contamination concerns. They concluded there are not. Geotechnical investigation, which assessed soils and the underlying support for a structure of this size. Conclusions were that it can support a structure of this magnitude. A traffic impact study and parking assessment. Those looked at whether the surrounding road network and active transportation could support the addition of this many employees. The conclusion was that it could. We are working with the city to evaluate the best way to do the shared parking, which is proposed as part of this application. As Ms. Jagtiani mentioned, the applicant does own a property across the street from this, where they have a warehousing facility. So we'd be looking to accommodate some of the employees from this site on their other site. And then finally, an arborist report and tree preservation plan were submitted to evaluate. While there are no trees on the site itself, it is vacant. There are trees on the adjacent properties that could potentially be impacted by development. So we provided that to look at making sure those trees aren't harmed. Next slide. In summary, we have submitted an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment to essentially provide an office building that is 4 stories. You'll notice the sort of unique configuration of that first floor. That's because we're proposing private recreation for employees of this site and the adjacent site owned in the same ownership. Proposing badminton courts down there, which would be a cool employee perk. And we're in the middle of the site plan stage, so some of these renderings may change, but this provides the general overview of what we're looking to construct here. Next slide.
Jennifer, just a reminder, you have 1 minute left.
Okay, perfect, right on time. So thank you for all your time. If you have any questions, I'm here, as well as some members from the consultant team and the ownership group. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now, is there any members of council that wish to make any comments or have any questions of clarification of staff for these items? Seeing none. The motion then moved by Councillor, what word is this? Keenan, that the report entitled Information Report Application to Amend Official Planning Zoning Bylaw J.L. Richardson Associates, 2849150, Ontario Inc., 150 First Gulf Boulevard, Ward 3, dated December 8th, 2022, to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of January 23rd, 2023 be received, and that the Development Services staff be directed to report back to Planning and Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and a staff recommendation subsequent to the completion of the circulation of application and comprehensive evaluation of the proposal. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is public delegations. 6.1 delegations, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw M-Plan Inc., Ivory Group, 227 and 229 Main Street, Ward 3. And Peter, do you know which ones are video submissions, which ones are live? And if we can move the videos to the end?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. The first one from Vaibhav Sharma is a video submission, and number 4 from Tanya Sidhu. So we can move those to the end. Then the first delegation would be Tony Lenardi. And Tony is here in person, followed by Sandra Lenardi, who is online, and Jasmohan Singh, who I believe is online. So we can deal with the in-person delegations first?
Yep, for sure.
Okay. So Tony, please come forward. You have up to 5 minutes to address committee on this item. And I believe you submitted a diagram that we'll bring up on the screen.
Sure, this side's okay?
Yeah, that side's fine, thank you.
Welcome, Tony. Once we get your slide up, the 5 minutes will start.
All right, good evening, Honorable Chair and members. Thank you for letting me address the committee today. Brampton is a great place to live, and it's one of the fastest growing communities in Canada. That's why this committee is one of the most important that Brampton has, is at the vanguard of decision-making that affects industry, people, traffic, and economics. It's more than just a city. This committee knows that. It's a group of fantastic neighborhoods, and I live on Hodgson Street, which is one of the best neighborhoods in Canada as far as I can tell. Been there for 30 years, love it. The applicant's site location borders on single-family homes on one side and an intensification corridor on the other. Density along this corridor was extensively studied by 3 levels of government, and it was evident that just because a property is along an intensification corridor doesn't mean that it can be developed without restriction. The OMB and LPAT have also agreed with that concept. After spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and with community involvement at workshops that many members of city and our community attended, properly qualified and objective planners produced the Hurontario Main Street Corridor Master Plan, which in part outlined how existing communities and increased density required by the LRT can work together. At this site location, planners determined that a maximum height of 10 stories would be appropriate and a special transition would be required to the low-rise stable community on the adjacent side of the property. This application runs afoul of both these proper planning outcomes. The application requests more than twice the maximum height in the master plan, and instead of a special transition zone, which would reduce the 45-degree angular plane in Brampton's guidelines, it actually exceeds the 45-degree angular plane. Currently, objective planners have also stated their concerns. The Brampton Urban Design Panel had many concerns regarding this proposal. The materials suggest have been addressed. I don't think they have, so I'm going to give you a top 10 of issues I don't think were addressed. These are quotes from their recommendations. Number 1, the scale and height of the building has a major impact on sky views for residents. How is that addressed by reducing it just by a couple of floors? I don't think it has been. Number 2, the panel was concerned about the high density and the proposed massing on this development. Again, the slight reduction in height doesn't address those concerns of the panel. Number 3, the panel considers this site to be a one-tower site based on the site's area and dimensions. The panel's considerations in this regard were completely ignored, and the 3-building structure still exists, is proposed. Number 4, the separation distance between the tower and the property line should ensure that it will minimize the impact to the neighboring properties and to the living conditions of building occupants. One tower at the corner of Main Street and Charlie Boulevard, which steps down towards the north, would be more appropriate. That again was ignored. Number 5, the design team should consider microclimate conditions. The preliminary wind study in this one says that the, and I'm quoting here, uncomfortable and potentially unsafe wind conditions will exist in the direction of our homes. I don't know how that has been addressed. Number 6, the applicant's proposal built form fails to address the Shoppers Road development to the south. The applicant should appropriately address height and density transitions along Main Street frontage, starting from Steeles Avenue. In Shoppers Road, the higher buildings are on Steeles, going down to about 3 stories on Charlet. This building is 8 times that height, 8 times. How does that address the transition? Number 7, the applicant should submit additional drawings, including site cross-sections, to address the privacy issues the development's impact on adjacent established low-density residential area. We haven't seen any of those. In the past, as you can see from before, previous developers have shared those with us, and we have cooperated with us and councilors to get to a good compromise. Number 8, the designer should create better seamless connectivity between the building, public realm, and amenity space. There's no connectivity from a 23-story building to a 2-story single home right next door. The panel cautioned that, number 9, the panel cautioned that the grading changes are abrupt and need to be gentler and gradual to ensure better integration with the surrounding sidewalks. In the Amica building, the developer actually dug low and excavated deeper so they could build more floors. Again, we don't know if that was considered in this one or not. Number 10, the panel unanimously agreed that they would like to see this proposal again to see how the design team utilized and responded to their advices. That was a unanimous request. To my knowledge, it was ignored. In conclusion, much is always said about the 45-degree angular plane. The 45-degree angular plane, which is exceeded in this application, isn't a rule that's always followed. Both the OMB and the LPAT have agreed that the principle that intensification corridors, some properties will not be able to achieve the maximum height otherwise permissible by a 45-degree angular plane.
Tony,
Yes.
I'm going to stop you for a second because you're rushing, and Denny has brought something to Councillor Keenan has brought something to my attention.
Sure.
Councillor Keenan.
Sorry, it's 5 minutes.
Sorry,
I know.
And you're bringing up some great points, and I just want to see if I'm able to give a little bit more time so that you can slow down a bit with your presentation.
Sure.
So that we can actually capture, and a lot of my colleagues can hear what some of these major concerns are. So I think it's important that we just give you some more time. Just take a little bit more time with it,
Sorry.
so that we can follow along with everything that you're presenting to us.
Sure, I apologize.
Okay, if that's okay
No,
with you,
no
Mr.
apology
Chair?
needed. We'll give you a couple more minutes and slow down and relax and hear your delegation.
All right, sorry about
Thanks,
that.
Thank you.
Just tried to speak quickly to get everything in there. There's a lot of information here. I'm nearing the conclusion here anyway, so I can go back to talk about anything that you want to talk about, Councillor Keenan. But the 45-degree angular plane, which is being exceeded in this application, isn't a rule that's always followed. The 45-degree isn't the gold standard. Many jurisdictions have agreed that the principle that intensification corridors, some properties will not be able to achieve the maximum height otherwise permissible by 45-degree angular plane due to the existing community. So if there's a community close by, that 45-degree plane actually, gets modified to address the existing community that's there. In Georgetown, the LPAT prevented a similar development from happening. In Guelph, they decided a 30-degree angular plane was appropriate. So again, that hasn't happened here. Here, actually, the plane has been increased instead of decreased. So that was my 5 minutes. I've done the best that I can. I apologize for speaking quickly. I stated in my earlier correspondence to my councillors, I would appreciate meeting with you further. We have a whole community that wants to meet with you guys as well. A number of us have the same request of this committee to please send this report back, right? And request that it comply with the requirements specified in the Huron-Ontario Main Street Corridor Master Plan and also address the concerns of the Urban Design Panel. There are many areas along this corridor where this type of a development would be appropriate, but it's not appropriate when it's right next door to a single-family community.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you. Sorry for speaking quickly.
No worries. Any members of council have any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you for your delegation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the next delegation is online, Sandra Lenardi. Sandra, you are in the session. You can unmute your mic, and you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. My name is Sandra Lenardi, and I've been a long-term resident of Brampton, and specifically in this neighborhood. And I have to agree with my husband, it is a fantastic neighborhood. I'd like to first start by stating that I oppose the proposed development to request that you ensure that it complies with the height restrictions specified in the Hurontario Main Street Corridor Master Plan for the subject property, which is 10 stories, and reject the current recommendation report. Specific concerns which are shared with my neighbors as stated in their emailed submissions include, but are not limited to, the following. Primarily, the excessive heights of the proposed buildings. And always keep in mind that these buildings are up on a hill. They're not down at the main street, the same level as Hurontario. They're up on quite a high hill. So that actually increases the perception of those stories to even more. Other things that have been discussed are blocking the sky view, shadowing effects. We're going to be perpetually in darkness in the front of our home. Our neighbors across the street, their backyards are going to be perpetually in the dark. And privacy. Given the height of these buildings, not only will they be able to look over very easily into our neighbors, but also our home, given our proximity to the buildings. Other concerns, parking. I don't know if there are sufficient parking spots for both the residential and commercial component. I'm afraid that people will be parking on our road. This has been seen in other residential areas where people there isn't enough parking at the actual location, so they park on the close by side streets. Septic and water supply, I didn't get a chance to look into where that's coming from, if it's part of ours on Hodgson or if it's through Main Street. Road access, my understanding is it's going to be shared with the retirement residents. So all of these units, commercial, residential, will be sharing the same access point as a retirement residence, which also has people with physical limitations and memory concerns. This is not going to be in harmony with the existing established neighborhood, nor is it in line with proposed development at 499 Main Street South. I'm very disappointed that there was so little input from the community. When Amica was built, when the proposal for the development of 499, there was input from the community. We felt heard, and we were heard because changes were made to recognize the existing established community. These are our homes, and to have to already have difficulty with accessing the area, it's just going to get worse by having all these residents and commercial units. The traffic, I don't know how they're going to be going in and out. My understanding is that there won't be a designated way for the people to leave. I'm not sure in both directions. In conclusion, and also wind effects. If you've been to downtown Toronto, which is where I work, it is quite windy being near those tall buildings. And again, this isn't a commercial environment. This is a home. This is a neighborhood of homes. I'm not opposed to buildings being built, but within reason and recognizing proper planning procedures and recognizing the previously approved Hurontario Main Street Corridor Master Plan for the subject property, which again limits to 10 stories. And I ask again that you reject the current recommendation report. Thank you very much for letting us speak, and I hope that we have another opportunity to speak again, because I do not feel that our concerns from the one and only other meeting were addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the next registered speaker is Jasmohan Singh Manku. We do see somebody online identified as Jazz. If it is Jasmohan Singh Manku, can you just please unmute your mic, and you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. So Jazz, just please unmute your microphone. There we go.
Hi, sorry, I think it's been mistaken. I'm Jazz Kieran.
Oh, sorry, okay. Tammy, if you can put that person back into the attendee list. And we do not see Jasmohan Singh Manku present online or in person. So we'll move on to the next delegation. The next two, Mr. Chair and members of committee, are video delegations. Tammy, if you can give me presenter, and we'll start with the first one from Vaibhav Sharma.
Peter, the video delegations have been posted online?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they have not. We tried to do that on Friday. One just came in today. It was converted, but we are still working on that, but they will be captured in the meeting video tonight.
Okay.
Hello, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Councillors and respected city staff. My name is Vaibhav Sharma, and I am a resident of Hodgson Street. I am standing on the fence of the current houses on Hodgson Street, and I wanted to give you a perspective of how this current development will look if it's built. As you can see, these are the houses on the Hodgson Street. Those trees are more than 40 years old trees. Right in front of me, you can see the Amica building. Amica building, which is 8 stories, which is no more than 8 stories. And when it was built, there was proper consultation and collaboration with the developer, and with the neighborhood. Now, if you notice, this is the 8-story Amica building. The current proposed building is 23 stories. Now, where exactly do we have space for 23 stories? If that is 8 stories and you do it 3 times, there will be no sky view. There is nothing left for us or the residents to look at, and it will cover the whole sky, the whole space. This will be a majority privacy and safety issues. If you notice the pole right there beside the car, that is the pole where the road starts. So there is not enough space here. Like there is not proper space or any area to build a 23 stories building. It will be a major privacy and safety concern for us. If you remember, back in 2019 in Toronto downtown, a woman threw a chair from the balcony and it landed on the road, which endangered lives of many. The distance between the houses and the building can lead to something similar, like something very similar situations. Anything thrown from the top of those buildings can land on our property, and God forbid on our health. These trees, which are more than 40 years old, the new trees which will be planted here, they will not be enough to cover the privacy, and it can take years and years for them, or decades and decades for them to grow, and even then they won't be enough for privacy. Now, even RioCan has acknowledged right here. This is the Shoppers World. Even RioCan has acknowledged our community, and they have designed their townhouses, which are 3 stories, which are 2 to 3 stories. They have designed their tall buildings close to steels, and they have designed their townhouses right here on this parking lot, because they want to collaborate it with our low-rise community. Mayor Brown and honorable councillors and city staff, I humbly request you to visit the site and take a look at it, and please look and see if a 23-story building will make sense here or not. We understand Brampton is a growing city. We understand we need more housing, but that should not be at the cost of uprooting the current community, current stable, peaceful, existing community. We request you to come take a look and decide for yourself if this 19 and 23 stories building makes sense. I humbly request you to reject the recommendation report, and there should be a building which should be no more than 8 to 10 stories. Again, look at the perspective of the Amica building, which is 8 stories versus 23 stories which is built here. It will be a major devastating effect on our mental health. This is what I want to say in this meeting. Please take my views into consideration. Thank you so much.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the last delegation is from Tanya Sidhu. She submitted a PowerPoint presentation with audio, and we've converted it to a video file, so we could not play it before the meeting. We're going to try and see if it'll play right now.
To Honorable Mayor, Councillors and City staff, my name is Tanya Sidhu, resident at Hodson Street, and I would like to share some comments regarding the proposed development on Main Street South in Brampton. One of my main concerns regarding this proposal is the excessive height of 23 and 19 levels, which are a huge contrast to the immediate surrounding low-rise detached homes. Compared to the Amica building, the new development is currently proposed at a whopping 3x the height. Not only will the development stick out like a sore thumb on the intersection, it also doesn't really fall in line with the RioCan proposal of 2 to 3 story townhouses on the other side of Charlotte. The RioCan proposal currently has the high-rise buildings, as you can see here, sitting away from the communities lining the main intersection, and instead transitioning the heights low towards the existing communities, as you can see here in the zoomed out version. I quote RioCan, "We don't want to just plop towers in the middle of the shopping center parking lot. That's not the intent. The intent is to build a true mixed-use community with townhouses really falling under the integration with the surrounding neighborhoods." Even with the 45-degree angular plane frontage more along the Main Street side, the towering buildings will impose on privacy, sunshine, and sky view of the residents. It has been proven that the lack of sky view and sunshine has a negative impact on mental health of an individual. Despite the planned green space, there's no way such high towers will limit the invasion of privacy and security of the residents. Imagine you're just trying to relax in your own backyard, only for your high-rise neighbors peering into your space from a short throw's distance. I just wanted to share this image for the sake of reference. This view is from the bottom of 75 Charlotte Boulevard, Oxford Properties. The lack of transition, height of the proposed buildings, and proximity to existing low-rise buildings are the main issues highlighted in this presentation. I'm requesting the decision makers to reduce the proposed building's height to maximum of 9 to 10 levels. This would still allow for the addition of mixed-use development that falls in line with the growth of the area while keeping the existing neighborhood in mind. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the delegations. There are a number of pieces of correspondence identified as 11.1 on this item.
Thank you, Peter. Do any members have any questions for any of the delegations? Seeing none, Councillor Keenan, you'll move receipt of all the delegations and the correspondence. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is the staff report, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw and Plan Inc., Ivory Group 227 and 229 Main Street, Ward 3. West side of Main Street, north of Charlotte Boulevard. Any members have any questions with respect to this report? Councillor?
Questions or comments?
Questions, comment? The report's now before you.
Yep.
Councillor Keenan.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to thank all the delegates for their delegations. Taking the time to do it on video and get it into us is huge and appreciated. You know, I'm new to council. So trying to wrap my head around all of these developments coming in is a lot to try to take on and make sure that we are doing the right thing, reading as many of the reports as we can, and getting into the history. This one's been going for quite some time. But I got to say that I do agree with a lot of the delegations that I've heard. Some of them obviously make sense when it comes to what's happening across the street and how they come a little bit lower. We are talking about the 45-degree angular plane, and I know the report lowered it slightly, the unit slightly. And through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask staff, in lowering it to the 23 stories, are we meeting the 45-degree angular plane?
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Keenan, I'll pass that question over to David Vandenberg, Manager of Development Services. We also have Dahlia, our Manager of Urban Design, who looks at the 45-degree angular plane in the shadowing studies to answer as well.
David?
Through the chair, the short answer to your question is no, parts of the building would infringe on the 45-degree angular plane.
So as the report's written, it would still infringe?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that we refer this back to staff. I would like to see it, at least we're meeting the 45-degree to work with the applicants in trying to bring the density down. This will also give me an opportunity to meet with my residents in person to discuss things with them a little further as well. So through you, Mr. Chair, if that's good, I would like to go ahead with that.
Sure. We have a referral on the floor now. One other speaker, I don't know if the councilor wants to speak to the referral or not, but as of right now, I hear that the referral is to refer back to staff to talk to the applicant to see if we can come up with more of the 45, if we can achieve the 45-degree plane, and then also give the area councilors an opportunity to meet with with some residents. Are you looking for staff to be at that meeting? Are you looking for a town hall?
Yeah, I would like to do a town hall.
Okay, so let's add that into the referral as well. And let's see if Councillor Santos is speaking to the referral.
Thank you. Speaking to the referral of this report back to staff, why is it that staff actually recommended the approval with these modifications to 23 stories if it did not meet the 45-degree angle? Why was this a positive staff report with the modifications if it did not meet that criteria?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Alan Parsons here, and unfortunately I'm not able to join you in person, Mr. Chairman, at tonight's meeting, but I do would like to answer Councillor Santos's question just in that respect. What I can offer through you, Mr. Chairman, is that the 45-degree angular plane is a guideline, and is a guideline that is generally utilized by area municipalities when trying to really provide an appropriate transition for intensification areas where there is a longer standing and a stable community that's next door to the proposed development site. In this case, although the 45-degree angular plane isn't strictly met by way of the proposed height that staff are recommending for the development, which is less than what the applicant had proposed, we found that there really needs to be a balance struck generally between trying to achieve an appropriate transition through to the adjacent area residents, which we believe the reduced building height does generally, but balanced together with trying to abide by the really general intent of what we've seen in the provincial documentation, the Places to Grow Act, the provincial policy statement as well, speaks to intensification of key intensification corridors. So here we have Hurontario Street, which is a primary intensification corridor. We are very close to just at Steeles and Huron, Ontario, which is a major transit station area, a gateway hub. Really, that backdrop of policy as it relates to these physical areas, the corridor, the close by intersection, we feel that it's because of those things that there's an importance to create some significant intensity along the corridor itself. But in matching 45-degree angular plane really is something that we turned our attention to. So the reduced height here doesn't match. We feel that a building that is under the 45-degree angular plane would be appropriate as well. But the modest breaching here that we've seen with the 45-degree angular plane, we thought was an appropriate balance, all things considered. But we're happy to take the matter back as directed by committee to look at the matter further and to really speak with the applicants about their approach towards looking at some revision to the application to improve it in that way.
Okay, thank you, Alan. And through you, Mr. Chair, back to the referral about the 45-degree angle. Is there an idea, Alan, or anyone on the staff team as to how many stories that would actually be if it were to meet the 45-degree angle plane?
Yeah, again, through you, Mr. Chair, to answer the question from Councillor Santos. We believe, Councillor Santos, that it would be approximately 19 stories. That would likely bring us up to really the maximum height for a building without breaching that 45-degree angular plane. There is maybe some nuance there where each story, could be some varied height. So in between, 2.5 meters to 3 meters. So we can have some discussion with the applicants about really what their intention is insofar as the height per story to come back and really put more detailed information through to yourselves and the public about really how to ensure that 45-degree angular plane would not be breached.
And I would just add through the chair.
Sorry, hold on 1 second, Councillor. Go ahead, David.
I would just add through the chair that if some of the upper stories were stepped back in the rear, that may allow for going above 19 stories and still meeting the 45-degree angular plane. So it all depends on the design of the building.
Councillor Santos, did you get that?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. So just another quick question. This is along the LRT corridor, major transit corridor. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the LRT, the Huron, Ontario corridor for is where this site is located.
And how far is this building in terms of its location to like a transit stop on that LRT line?
Through the chair, it's my understanding that the proposed or the current LRT from Mississauga is going to be terminating at the Shoppers World site. This site is north of the Shoppers World site. So at this point in time, I can't speak to any proposed or planned LRT stations at this site location.
Okay, and then I know that we're advocating for more ridership along the LRT to go to downtown Brampton. That's one of our priorities of council. So assuming that, how far would that be to, essentially on Main Street? How far is
So, Councillor Santos, I just need you to bring it back to the referral.
Okay, so we have a positive staff report that requires with modifications listed inside the report, but we're referring it back to staff because we missed something, which is the 45-degree angular plane guideline.
So, Councillor Santos, it sounds like that, and then what Councillor Keenan has heard from the residents is they don't feel like they've been engaged from the beginning, and Councillor Keenan is asking for more public engagement for the area residents.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm still thinking through the referral, and it's sounding more and more possible. I'm just confused because it is a positive staff report, and something has been missed. So if we have to take it back and look at that, that's fine. But I would imagine that council members of council, that we do support intensification and density along the LRT line because it's a major transit corridor, And if we're not building density near transit lines, I don't know where we're going to build it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Members of committee, you have before you the referral. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is 7.2. Nope, 7.2 was in consent. Peter, help me here.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the next item would be item 12, councillor question period, followed by public question period. All the business has been conducted.
Councillor question period. Are there any members of committee like to ask any questions for any of the items that are on the agenda? Seeing none. Public question period. Any members of public would like to come up to the podium and ask any questions about anything that was on the agenda for today? Come on. Come on down. You have to state your name. Come on up and then give your delegation. Then there's a book behind you. After your delegation, you're going to write your name in the book behind you.
I know it's the first time doing that, I don't know.
We'll help you after.
Oh, okay, after, okay.
After's fine.
Okay, I have a few things to say, actually, and not really questions.
Okay. You have to form them in a question.
Oh, in a question.
It's question period.
Oh, it's a question period. Oh, I didn't know that, okay. Why are we building condominiums at 229 and 227 Main Street?
So anybody can bring forward an application to build whatever they want in the city of Brampton. It's everybody's right. So it's gone through the public meeting, and now it's our job to write a recommendation report, staff, and bring that forward to committee. At this time, where we are right now, currently, we're looking at that recommendation report, which then either gets approved or denied by committee, and then ratified by council.
Okay. Am I allowed to express my opinions on this right now?
100%.
No?
In a form of a question.
Okay, that's kind of hard here. Okay, let's see. Do you think that 400 units in that particular area will increase congestion?
You can, directing to staff or the area councilors?
Whoever's overseeing the whole thing. A professional in regarding this particular.
Sure, we can go to staff. David, or?
Sure. Through the chair, as part of the application, the applicant has submitted a traffic study that looked in detail at the traffic impacts, and that traffic study concluded after being thoroughly reviewed by our expert traffic staff that the traffic impacts were acceptable.
So it falls within our guidelines. So just so you know, we've now referred that report back to staff, and then given the area councilors an opportunity to meet with residents to voice any concerns that they have.
Okay.
And then staff will be at that meeting because we've made it official.
So it's more, I guess I should be getting involved with a different type of meeting after this then.
Contact your area councilors, Councillor Keenan and Councillor Medeiros.
Okay.
And they'll be happy to include you on any correspondence for the town hall.
I understand. It's my first time getting involved with city council.
For sure, absolutely.
So next time. Thank you so much.
Excellent, thank you. And then if you don't forget to write your name and address in the book. Was there somebody else? Any questions? Come on down. If anybody else has any questions, come down and write your name in the book before.
Hi. I'd like to ask a question for a proposed community center in Embleton Community Center.
So you have to ask any questions that relate to the agenda is here today.
It's only for the agenda?
Anything that's on the agenda here today, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But I know that you all have been in very close communication with our office.
Yeah.
So if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out.
It's just that we wanted an update of the milestones which were
no
given.
questions here today about the Embleton Community Center, but
Okay,
thank you.
no problem. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else about anything on the agenda here today? Seeing none, we have no closed session. Come.
I just have a general question, not about the agenda.
Just wait and come to the mic.
I have a very
Anything on the agenda here today?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
No,
Our next item
ask
is,
you one question. Like, if I want to
Is it
bring
anything-
something, if I want to bring something, what is the process? Anything new onto the
I'll send you an email. We have no closed session. Adjournment. It's been moved by Councillor Power. We adjourn tonight's committee meeting, scheduled to next meet February 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m. All in favor? That carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.